companies to invest in a network and then to roll it out. The level of appetite for that is really just what we're trying to judge today. Is and to just seek your views on any of that. You've got any questions about? You don't have to become experts. I'm not going to come back and test you on any of these different models. All the materials will be available that we'll put on the Connecting Cheshire website after this, so you can view the materials. But it's just, if anyone wants to open the floor with any questions you've got, or anything, if any of that's appealed to you and you said you want to know more, that you can ask any questions to the panel here.
Could I ask Adrian a question? We made an application in the first round, and one of the reasons that it was deferred was that our proposed solution was to use Wi-Fi, and apparently Wi-Fi isn't a European standard for high-speed networking. Now, your presentation gave me the impression that it was technology agnostic, and we wouldn't be able to use that by delivering with Wi-Fi.
If I'm honest, I don't. We had about 40 applications, so I can't actually remember off the top of my head yours. Yes. Right. Wi-Fi, old-fashioned Wi-Fi, like you have in your house, but industrialised to do outdoors. That in itself is unlikely to deliver the
we actually have a fibre optic network cable that runs close to our community, and the proposal was to take a spur off that and deliver to the local community via wireless.
Right. There are two issues.
Yeah.
So traditional proper Wi-Fi, as opposed to other forms of wireless broadband, is unlikely to be able to deliver sustained super-fast speeds. Now, to be honest, I don't know whether that was what you suggested or not. I can't remember. So technically, that wouldn't qualify under just the speed criteria. One of the things you have to watch with a lot of wireless broadband technologies is they have a habit of adding the up speed and the down speed together. So when they say 50 meg broadband, actually what they mean is 25. So you have to be a little careful. So some of those wireless technologies don't qualify. The other issue that we're facing, which probably was in your letter more as a flag that this could be a problem in the future, was that the European Union has some doubts generally as to whether wireless technology is considered a next generation broadband technology at all. At the moment, their view has been quite hard line that no, it's not. The trouble is their view was written down in 2009 where there were no forms of wireless that could really meet that criteria. The UK government doesn't really, their tendency would be not to agree with the European Union on this point now, because in the last 3 years quite a lot's changed. So the BDUK would prefer to be able to support some forms of wireless if they delivered proper NGA, next generation broadband type services. And it's beginning to sound like the European Union may be beginning to change their mind, but it's not a quick process. So I think that side of things in your bid was probably a flag to say that there is a risk that come the end of the process, if you put wireless in there, there is a risk that the European Union may turn around and say you can't have the money.
Can I ask Matthew to repeat those charges which you have? Let me know whether once we've got the system, there will be any extra charges to AOL or whoever else it might be.
Okay, so in essence, you're getting the line rental and service provider component of your current communications package, which you'll also be buying separately, your telephony and your TV entertainment and things like that, which of course you may be getting for free, but you may be buying it as well. What we're offering is essentially a fibre line rental and ISP service for £37 a month, which is the monthly rental. Is a £100 installation, connection fee, and for most people, the £85 installation actually gets it installed into their house. Not for everybody, because if you're going across a concrete farmyard, £85 doesn't get you any distance at all.
Does with those?
Even in Lancashire, concrete's hard.
We just go under it.
Can I ask you something then? your charge, does that include a voice service? So
No, so our service doesn't include any voice telephony, so you'd still then need to take a voice telephony service from any of the 200 and something or other voice providers in the UK, which includes people like Vonage, that you've probably heard of, and lots of others.
And BT.
Well, BT's just discontinued their VoIP product because apparently they're about to bring out a new one. When they launch their new VoIP product, because you need to have a voice telephony service that goes over an IP network. Yeah, because we're delivering you an IP network. So they are about, I assume, to launch a new VoIP service, in which case you'd be able to buy it from BT as well, yes.
But you wouldn't need your copper landline.
Yeah, you wouldn't need your conventional circuit telephone line into your house.
That would all go.
You could stop paying for
That's
that.
Unless you're currently using it for your alarm system, which many people in rural areas do, in which case you then need to move your alarm service, which is usually Redcare, but there are others, onto an IP-based alarm system, as opposed to a telephony, a copper line-based alarm system, which again is normally cheaper anyway. But there's a few wrinkles in moving everything off your copper line.
So do you make an assessment then of whether it would be appropriate for a particular area to go with you, or wait for improvements through Cheshire West?
It really would be down to the community whether they wanted to go for a service like ours. I mean, we're building an all-fibre network in the community, which is where by 2025, every community will have an all-fibre network. That's a guess. It might be a bit longer than that, but say by 2025 there will be no copper left in the UK. The question is, where in that deployment plan do you want your community to be? You can wait, in which case, if you're in a rural area, you'll be towards the end of that process, somewhere, post-2020. Or you can choose, well, actually, we think we'd like to jump the queue and go to a commercial company like us, or go to a DIY model like Chris is running with her business.
And did I hear correctly, you only need 30% of the residents in the community to sign up?
Yeah.
So
there is a minimum number of
sure.
number as well, but I mean, yes, only 30%.
On these numbers, that's enough money for you to make a decent return.
Exactly, yeah.
What's the minimum number then?
So we're looking for a cluster of communities in any one area with at least 1,000 properties, although that's not necessarily one community, and then we'd start typically in one community, but we will do an evaluation to make sure we at least think that those other communities are likely to get to the same place at some point in the next couple of years.
And clearly you will deliver a much faster service than we can expect from Cheshire West. Cheshire West is not going to deliver.
So although BT is also working on an upgrade to their product line that they're sort of talking to the industry about at the moment, which will be an all-fibre upgrade in any area where they're doing these super fast networks. So they then give you the ability to go, I think they said at the moment up to 300 megabits a second, down 20 megs up. I think that's the current announcement. So not quite as fast as what we're doing, and clearly not nearly as good, but still, pretty speedy for today, when in lots of the places that we talk to, they're getting 1 meg down and a couple of,
0.28.
Yeah.
I think you'll find that some people around here might aspire to 1 meg.
But I remember when 1 meg was great. I mean, in 2001, when I got my first DSL service in, I had a meg, and I just couldn't believe it. I mean, it was just so fast. It was breathtaking. In 10 years, that's gone from breathtaking to way too slow.
You showed us the pub end, and you said we connect direct to the internet. Can you just explain that a bit more? What do you connect to if you were doing something?
Yes, so we connect to Links down in London, which is the main peering point for internet services in the UK, if that answers your question.
So you've got your basic network and you connect.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
May I ask a question? I think it's Adrian. You've mentioned 2 billion of possible funding. Has anyone worked out how much it would cost to give minimum 24 megabits to everyone in England?
Double that.
Is it only double that?
I think it's
I think the sort of figures, there was a piece of work done by Analysis Mason 3 or 4 years ago, must be about that now, and they came up with a figure of about £5 billion to do the whole of the UK.
5 billion. Because, in fact, looking at it and talking of the political arena at the moment about what we need is growth, you'd think that was 3 billion well spent. 3 billion.
It won't actually deliver it, though, to everybody. It'll only deliver it to the people within a close radius of the exchanges.
Well, I was
Well, not the
suggesting
exchanges.
everybody.
I thought he said ADSL2+.
No. Fibre to the cabinet. The 24
Fibre
meg
to the
high
cabinet.
speed.
Yeah, but lots of villages don't have cabinets.
That's the challenge. Isn't it?
I mean, to me, I suppose, I'm not quite sure whether it's broadband or high-speed broadband, but or super high-speed broadband, but it's like water or electricity. In time, it's something that we all must have for life. So it's okay.
You can always tell
saying
people
that
who live in rural areas because they stop short of saying gas, because we all know that we don't have gas.
it's more important than gas.
Indeed it is, absolutely. Yes, I'm quite happy with bottled
I have
gas.
a second question about, I heard recently about 4G, is it, mobile linkages being a way of delivering
Can I answer
broadband?
this one?
Yeah,
Go
go
on,
on,
then.
and I'll see if you're right, and then I'll do it.
3G in
Yeah,
their
who's got
village?
3G?
In their village. Who's got 3G? So two of you, 3 of you, 4 of you. And in the areas around your village, have you got 3G? I mean, bluntly, 3G's been out for 10 years, and most rural areas don't have a decent 3G service yet. Don't hold your breath for a good 4G service in rural areas.
One of the challenges to deliver the sorts of speeds we're talking about, you're going to have fibre to go into the mast, and there's going to have to an awful lot more masts. So if you're going to build that much fibre into rural areas, you might as well be doing something else. is the answer.
Yeah, I think the 4G, I came across that question up in Northumberland. It is, a lot of people are saying it as a reason to do nothing. Oh, never mind, 4G is coming along. The operators are going to be forced to give 97, 98% UK availability. And yes, that may end up being true eventually. The problem is that if people then in those areas start to take it, then the actual capacity of the backhaul will be relatively small in those sort of deep rural areas. And so as people start to use it, it will all throttle back quite dramatically, unless there is a significant fibre infrastructure behind it. And that is essentially what we're talking about now. Whether that fibre infrastructure goes to cabinets that then at the moment have copper going from them, or go right to people's homes, the fibre infrastructure, the real core fibre infrastructure that these kind of projects are talking about over the next 3 years, I reckon will form a part of the communications infrastructure for a good bit of the 21st century. So they are kind of important. 4G won't do it.
Do we know what the mapping is for that new fibre infrastructure? So we can start thinking how near our villages.
It's where a cabinet is, and that's it, full stop. If you've got a cabinet, that's as far as the fibre goes.
We have got some of that mapping available to the council, so we know where the telephone exchanges are, we know where the boundaries for those are, we know what cabinets there are. So, and then we've got this cost model, which is, it's largely developed by BDUK. So they've costed the upgrade to those cabinets. So quite simply, you can sort that in a price order, and the very most expensive ones are the most highly speed area. That's one of the simple maths routes to doing this. It is some of those cabinets which are the most expensive to connect are in this area of Cheshire, unfortunately. And we've got that mapping that we can make available, so you can get a good estimation of where the hardest challenges are. So we know we've got enough money to get to, or we hope we've got enough money if all the figures have been done right to get to 90%. We've got this European bid that will hopefully make us go from 90 to 100, but we don't know if it's going to be enough money to do the whole of the piece, because as you can imagine, the cost is an exponential curve. So
Is that the network to the cabinets or beyond the cabinets?
it's a network to the cabinets.
To the cabinets?
Yeah, a network from a full fibre. It will be a mixture. Largely, the environment which has been done is 85% is fibre to the cabinet, and then the last part is the copper connection. But as been rightly pointed out, there are a number of telephone lines which are directly connected from that home or the farm or that business all the way back to the telephone exchange, because there's no economy to have a cabinet. So they're called exchange lines only. And what you might do for that is a full end-to-end fibre connection. So it will be a bit of a mixed economy when we actually come to this deployment, how it works. And a lot of it will be, we've got our preferences as political preferences where we'd like to connect. but equally the telecommunications sector will look to where they can get the most revenue return quickest. So it'll be an adjacency model, so the likelihood is that they'll go to where they start to get the most connections and people taking up the service, because that helps them fund the rollout and expand that. And so there's a trade-off for us to have when we have that conversation through the competitive dialogue or through the procurement exercise about how we actually approach this. So it's about both sides.
Gentlemen, back. Can I ask, are you going to set up a situation where individual areas can come to you with their own particular problems and talk to you direct on a one-to-one basis?
Well, that forum is already open. So if local communities suggest that they want to do something sooner than the strategic programme or something different than what the strategic programme, or they're at risk of not getting it because the strategic programme may not be able to fund that, we'll have conversations with those groups of people now to try and help them. And what we also want to do is to put you in touch with the people who are having those conversations, because there are a number of people across Cheshire all considering how they make a difference with this, and that's really that community, that plan and that engagement piece, and trying to get the digital champions to talk to one another as a peer support network. So yeah, that's absolutely open now. If you wanted to come and have a conversation with us about how to approach this, what we can offer is impartial advice.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
What we can't offer though is lots of money to do this. But that said, what we will try and do for the procurement is ring fence a proportion of the investment to go that extra mile with the communities in the hardest to reach areas where there's that proportion of innovation. As Adrian pointed out about those three circles intersecting, it's about the industry putting some value into this, some public money coming in, but also working with the community, because you've got to have all three of those in the hardest to reach areas to make this work. And largely it could be simple as accepting that there's going to have to be road closures, or there's got to be way leavers over land estates. And it's those types of things that without some understanding of what's happening and why we're doing it, that could actually block getting a better service. So there's been a recent example of a village on the outskirts of Macclesfield that were getting a cabinet. It got delayed, it got pushed back to the point where BC cancelled that. Now that community was up in arms. They wrote to the local MP, they lobbied BT, and that decision has now been reversed. Now that just shows that the power a community can have. And it was over something as simple as the sidewalk or the pavement not being wide enough to put these cabinets on to allow them to get around, so it contravenes some highway. So that's something I'm trying to unravel at the moment in that community, about reciting that telephone cabinet to a different area, to try and understand what the wayleaver rights are on the land where it seems suitable to put it, and to work it through the community. But it's just an example that actually by working together as a community, we've got some power to do this. And BT is a big organisation, but they listen to negative publicity. So that can help, and steering and the demand aspects, what we spoke about as well. It's all evidence to help us trying to get this connectivity going further.
The gentleman there.
Yes, I think what I'm hearing is that the county plan is going to deliver fibre to the cabinet.
Yes.
And that was just sort of happened really.
He'll deliver it, but it won't be everywhere.
Yes.
I think what we're saying is we're just trying to get as far as possible.
My real question was, having done that, what do you expect the speed increase to be to the consumer? Is it going to double it, treble it?
The speed will be set as a minimum bar. There's two thresholds. There's like a maximum speed where we can decide that, and then like a minimum speed at the worst time, so 5 o'clock tea time when everybody's on. The minimum we're going to set probably something around 24 at the worst time. But let's use the BT product as an example at the moment. Their solution is saying up to 40 megabits, and that's recently doubling up to 80 megabits. So it's going to be a significant step change from what speeds you're receiving at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I think it's really that sort of communities like ours, we're about 1.5 miles from the cabinet.
Yeah.
And we're getting, on a good day, 2.5 megabits per second. If you put fibre to that cabinet, is it going to go to 5, 8, 10, right. 15?
If your cabinet is one of the ones that are in the 90%, so that's not certain, but if that cabinet is enabled, you have a reasonably clear run from your house to the cabinet at about 1.5 miles.
It won't make a hairpin's of difference to him.
Yeah, a mile and a half. A mile and a half from cabinet, you ought to be getting something like 15 megabits per second.
What's the cost per mile to bridge a mile and a half?
Now you cannot yet, but the cabinet that would be installed, assuming that would be a BT or Fujitsu cabinet. That would be capable of taking certainly what BT at the moment they're calling is it fibre on demand or something like that. Basically, it's an overlay, so you can take a fibre to that cabinet. It's not available yet, but it's probably going to be available.
It's probably be about £300
next
a month if you want that.
It may be quite expensive. I don't know if you
Yes,
know.
well, tell it like it is, James.
I don't know the price.
A
but it
mile
will
and
be
a half
available.
from a cabinet, you will not get a connection.
With the copper we've got to the cabinet. The might not this fancy sort of
The bigger problem, I'm afraid, in the final 10% areas is whether your cabinet gets enabled.
Right. Okay. So
that's the problem that you really.
Campaigning point is to get the cabinet upgraded.
So
it's all about distance.
End user stuff.
So at the moment you're connecting back to the cabinet, and the cabinet goes back to the exchange. So you might be 5 kilometres away from a telephone exchange. By replacing part of that journey with fibre, you're reducing the.
What would the mile and a half cost to replace with fibre?
Well, BT haven't announced what they're going to be charging for that service.
They've done it.
So but
no, we're just building a whole network ourselves because we're nowhere near any cabinets or exchanges. We're on dial-up.
Depends on typical industry charges. In a centre, a town centre for BT to put something like Cheshire, for example, could be £200 a metre. I'm sure for a scheme like that, you're in the tens of pounds a metre.
Yeah.
So it just shows the different levels of engagement. So if you've got people with farming equipment and slot cutters and you're prepared to get your hands dirty and do this yourself, you can really bring the costs right down to tens of pounds a metre. What that then does, you take other things with that. It has to connect into the main infrastructure. You run that network, you provide support and help for that network, say if somebody has a problem. So there are different levels and different schemes. And this is really what today's about. It's trying to open up that there's no one answer to this. It's really what fits comfortably with the community, in your community and with yourselves. I don't want to steer anyone in any particular direction. I can't make promises that will definitely get everywhere with the technology. So you do need to be considering what this means to you and how important it is.
What determines where a cabinet is placed with respect?
They're already there.
Sorry?
They're already there, the cabinets.
The telephone cabinets were put in by the Post Office, which is now BT, during the 2 World Wars. So it's an infrastructure that is designed.
I'm confused. What's a cabinet and what's an exchange then?
Telephone exchange is the central point where all the connections go back to. So it covers a wide geographical area.
Right.
And then a number of cabinets connect to the telephone exchange. So the cabinets
they're
are the
about
green boxes.
3 foot high.
No, I know what they look like. I just can't think where one is in my village.
Well, there may not
Probably
be
isn't
one.
one.
Well, that's what I'm asking. If there isn't one, you're talking about placing.
No.
They place a new one next to your old one. If you've got an old cabinet, they can put a fibre cabinet next to
obvious,
it.
But if there's no cabinet,
You don't get one.
you don't get one.
They could put one
That's
in.
not true.
If it was
That's
economically
not.
viable.
Yeah.
Or they
Sorry, I
would-
can't pick up the two.
It would be, they do a technical survey, and if your project or your area is commercially viable, they would make a technical solution about how they'd approach that.
Right.
So they could put a new cabinet in if that worked, or they could literally take a piece of fibre directly from
From the exchange
to your
to
home.
all the houses.
Yes,
Oh,
but that's very much on a case by case basis when you get into those difficult areas. For a town or where there's existing cabinets, it's quite straightforward.
But it's not. I mean, it's Tilston. It's a little village where there's a lot of houses in the centre, and there's farms, for which there is a much more difficult solution.
Right.
But for the centre of the village, it's pretty straightforward.
And that's an important point, and certainly what I came across in Cumbria when I was looking at the pilots for the Rural Community Broadband Fund there. Quite often you've got some parts of the community that are relatively easy to access, and then a community that's right up on the top of the hill with half a dozen houses decide they want to be a community in their own and want to do it alone. Well, it's just not viable. One of the things that certainly sort of John and I want to sort of work with is looking at what are viable communities, because like Matthew said, if you can sort of bring them together, so you've got roughly 1,000 properties or more, then you're into something that's much more viable. Within that, you may have some that are relatively easy to get, some that are a bit more challenging to get, but overall, you get something that's commercially viable and can be brought into the scope. Just behind you, you've got a couple of sort of wireless experts who also do sort of various sort of different fibres. So we have sort of other sort of technical experts around. But as soon as you start getting to that kind of scale, then it becomes simpler. So really, I suppose the message I would like to try and sort of get people to understand is let's not worry too much about what the actual, sort of technical possibilities that you've got to your home, but what does the community look like? What does the level of demand look like that you've got? Then let's bring that together, create some kind of business model, and then we can start worrying about what the technology looks like.
Can I ask, on these, say, 1,000-person community, is there any disadvantage in crossing between Cheshire East and Cheshire West, for example, or a disadvantage by going between two different telephone exchange numbers? Because on those questions, can we just forget the differences and just go to an area that is sensible, or do we have to bear that in mind?
What I would suggest for kind of people in the audience is concentrate on your communities, really understand the communities and where there's demand. What we can then do is actually help you to understand how that can best fit on to something that's technically achievable and deliverable.
I think what I'm saying is I think communities around here are maybe 400 people in a parish. They're not 2,000 or 1,000, so we've got to go...
So go talk to each other.
Communities together to
Yes,
get to 1,000.
absolutely.
That's my point.
And that is okay. It's exactly my point as well. Because if you can work on your individual communities, have half a dozen digital champions working together, getting those communities talking together, and then we can start to talk about what does the submission to the Broadband Fund look like, and beyond that, what does the procurement look like? There are other sort of, if you like, technical and procedural elements that can bring the communities together once you've got that core support in your communities. If you have two exchanges together, then that in some cases can be beneficial, because some exchanges are easier to get to than others. If your exchange just happens to be the most difficult one, then that can make life difficult. If you're adjacent to one that is relatively easier, then that adjacency makes life easier. If you're going down the telephone exchange route, basically, in a sense, shall I say, it's rather easier for me and Matthew and some of the others to think about those things than it is perhaps for you to try and become experts in how telecoms sort of companies work.
I think as well, if you're thinking about the sort of speed you might be interested in, I mean, you might decide that 15 megabit per second is much better than what you're getting now, so that's what you aim for. But I think the other thing you need to bear in mind is that towns and cities now, 100 megabit per second connections are becoming quite common. I think BT and Virgin are about to roll out products which give up 300 megabit per second. You've got networks that are now developing at gigabit, 1,000 megabit per second. The thing is that companies, internet providers, are developing services to fit those connections. And I think you therefore risk another digital divide opening up, because people will be benefiting from that. They're benefiting from things like telehealth and telecare, where they can stay at home rather than being in hospital or care homes. They're benefiting from education services delivered online. And so 15 megabit per second might sound a lot better than what you're getting now, but it could be miles behind what people in towns and cities are getting, and you could be missing out on what people in towns and cities are getting.
If you settle for super fast broadband from a cabinet, that's what you settle for, and you've spent all the money allocated to your county on that solution, and it isn't a solution. It might make a lot of you happy for a short time, but your money's far better spent in a company like GigaClear, or doing it yourself like us. You really do have to think hard and talk to your council, and don't waste your money on cabinets. Sorry.
No, well, if I can just follow up on that. I mean, supposing a community goes with GigaClear and you're offering 60 at the moment.
No.
Oh, sorry, I misunderstood you then.
So in Hamilton they're getting 67.
Oh, okay. My question was going to be, if a community like Hamilton's got that now, 60, can you uprate that? Yeah.
So the actual network we built there runs at 1,000 megabits a second. And because of the size of the community, we only put a relatively small backhaul pipe into that community, which we will be upgrading next year anyway.
Right. So in 10 years' time, when everybody's moaning that what they've got now
they'll be at 1,000.
you can take them up.
Or 1,000. You can put
Well-
terabits down a fibre. You can put anything down a fibre. The fibre's there. It'll take anything depending on the lights you put. We're only putting 1,000 meg down because the lights were the same price as 100 meg lights. So that's the only reason we're a gigabit network. It's the lights. The fibre can go up to terabits. We're putting 10 gig in each end of our network. It's future-proof. Whereas if we put all our money into helping BT do cabinets, we're wasting our money. That's the way we look at it. But it's better than you're getting now for a lot of your people.
But getting BT to do it is a lot easier.
Oh, a lot
Bluntly,
easier.
There's a lot less work involved.
You don't have to do anything.
Well, have to do something.
It's not that easy.
I suppose what the big question from our point of view is, can you get your communities on board with delivering whatever solution?
Because if you can't, you might as well just forget about it and be one of the people who do nothing.
Yeah, but if you can believe all of this stuff that you print out here, it's a no-brainer, isn't it? Basically.
What's a no-brainer?
But all of the benefits that come from high-speed broadband, it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, but you're not going to get them unless you help yourselves.
No, I appreciate that. But
BT should be required to provide service for the whole country, really.
Well, they do. They do. You can get dial-up.
One thing, is this still on? No, it's not.
I've got to go now, but if you've got any more questions directly for me or the team about the strategic approach.
Just one on the slide again. So we go on to connect.
Get to Cheshire.org.uk
Yes, we can get
website.
copies all the time to see.
Put the slides up so they're all available. Yeah, apologies I've got to shoot off, but like if there are any other questions related to that you want to get in touch with Andrew, our DITI colleague over in the corner here, Andrew's working on community engagement for us, so if you've got any questions you can relay them through him. Otherwise you can drop me an email or drop the team an email and we'll try and help you out. But these guys will carry on having the conversation with you and just to try and tease out that appetite. So, okay.
Okay. I should say as well that I've filmed all the presentations and I'll put them online, and I realise that's a joke for some of you, but I will also put them on DVD, so anybody wants a copy of them on DVD, and I'm actually audio recording this Q&A session, so we'll make that available as well.
Okay, how do you want to proceed? What I sort of had in terms of the idea for this is that we have part Q&A, which is kind of a bit formal. Us sitting here, you sitting over there. The other option is if you would just want to sort of break up into groups and discuss various aspects of it, then we're happy to do it. Which way is easiest for everybody? Are you still happy either just clearing off or firing questions, or... Sorry, John. Sorry, just a moment.
I work for Cheshire Community Action with the Rural Community Council. It's more just, I think for everyone else and for me, I think it's fantastic because there's so much information to take on. I've been to the BD UK sessions and I'm still trying to concentrate really hard to sort of take on all this information. I'm sure everyone else here is. But it's something that strikes me, and perhaps I don't know with some of the parish councils in the room, but it's where to start with all this, actually. That we talked about all the benefits and the services, the benefits for home businesses, healthcare, you know, or whether there's, you know, home-based businesses that need to do HD teleconferencing with a supplier in China, right through to someone who just wants to book flights and perhaps log on to BBC iPlayer or whatever that might be. But maybe, is there any just kind of pearls of wisdom or things like that?
I've got some pearls of wisdom.
I was going to say you probably got more, but I think it's...
You talk to your people first.
How to get this.
You talk to your people. You talk to your people first. You talk to your parish councils. You get your parish councils to organise parish meetings. You get all the people to come to the parish meeting to find out what it's about. You give them tea and cake, that's the pull, give them cake and they'll come. You have a talk like this and they go away either absolutely horrified and don't want to hear another technical thing again as long as they live, or they think, oh, I would actually quite like to be able to Skype my auntie in America. Is that what you can do? Right, let's help them a bit. So you get people talking. From your meeting, you'll get 2 or 3 people who are your gems, your champions, who more or less understand a lot of it. They've got to then start filtering out to all the others. Because they belong to the community, they trust them. You don't know me from Adam and you don't know him from Adam. Why should you trust us? The people will trust their own people. You then find out that you've got a whole village that's got miserable broadband and actually want to do something about it, you then get another village and another village, till you've got a whole group that add up to about 1,000 people in a reasonably close geographical area. Then you can approach somebody like him, or by then you've got enough knowledge and you think, oh, sod it, we can do it ourselves. We can get a gigabit pipe into all our people. Ours will be £30 a month, even cheaper than him, because we've done it ourselves.
Definitely cheaper.
But then we have the responsibility of training the people, if they're not already trained, to run that network. We have the benefit of we provide lots of local jobs. We have local people doing our help centres. We have local people installing. If you want to do that, do that. If you don't want to do that, don't do it. It's your community's choice. You can't make them do anything. You can't tell your community you've got to build your own network like Barn. You can't tell them you've got to go with him. Let them decide, but let them have the choices. It's your job to inform them of the choices. And then you do what they want. You steer them a bit. Don't let them just settle for cabinets, because half your communities will be on rubbish broadband for another 20 years.
And it's making it real, I suppose, as well, isn't it? What it can actually do for you in everyday life as well. That's important, isn't it?
And you'll find that some of the people who live in your community
Already know.
Yeah, they know, because they work in
And
a high tech. You know, they
they'll
commute
tell
out
the
or
others.
in. So it's not like you have to do it all yourselves.
No.
There are other people you can corral who
Yes,
understand.
that's this, right. That's my slideshow, that's my presentation. In your community, you've got your activists, that they'll be you lot going back to your communities, surrounded by adopters. If you talk to people and give them a little bit more knowledge, they'll become the adopters and they'll join you in this middle bit. All the way around those people, you've got the apathetic bunch. And it's up to you and the adopters to start filtering into the apathetic ones who say, oh, well, you know, it's fast enough for me. I don't want to dig. But round the apathetic bunch, you've got the antis. You've got the people who say, you know, oh, BT are definitely going to do it. I've heard they're going to bring 100 meg to our village, and you don't want to waste your time with them. They're all nutters. So you've got the 4 A's, and this is how you've got to start going out. And each group, you know, the activists will help the adopters. Like, we're the activists here, so you're the adopters. When you go home, you'll be the activists in your community, if you want to be. If you don't, you just do nothing.
Can I suggest, since I know a lot of you come from parish councils, the one thing you might want to look at, which is work quite well for some of the communities that we're talking to and working with, is they've got their parish plan. And they've gone and done a short survey of their parishioners as to what do you want to have as priorities in your parish plan. I mean, maybe you guys have done all this and you've already got parish plans and everything. I mean, it's unbelievable, though, how often better broadband comes up in terms of one of the top 1 or 2 priorities for communities like yourselves that have, frankly, rubbish internet connectivity at the moment. And that then gives you a mandate to then start actually making things happen.
Can I just ask, the time scale with all these things? I mean, the village I live in are in the process of doing a neighbourhood development plan.
Great.
Yeah, great if you're not on the steering group. But, so quite why I got involved in this, I don't know. But, so I can appreciate that, yes, what you're saying, if we could, you know, have the super fast broadband and do it in connection with our neighbourhood development plan, that is a great idea, and it's also saving people coming to lots of different meetings. Now, the village I live in does have an exchange. However, I don't know if it's... I was told about 5 years ago it was becoming obsolete, so I don't even know if it works or not. I'm assuming that...
I don't think any exchanges have closed down. Have they, Adrian?
Right.
Are you aware of any?
I don't see any... We never
Yeah, we got a load closed down. Yeah.
Well, if Ines has been turned into a house, it'll still be.
It'll still be an exchange.
Oh, it'll still be an exchange, will it?
Yeah.
Right. Which exchange was it?
Farmden, 01829.
Farmden.
So almost certainly it's still running as a telephone exchange.
Right, we just never see any sign of life there.
Oh, no, you wouldn't. No.
There's no people there anymore.
Okay. So in terms of what next then, what I would suggest is as Adrian said, if you do feel you're in an area, well, no, let's be more honest than that. If you're here because we feel that you're almost certainly in an area where you are within the last 10%, and the Cheshire East, Cheshire West sort of local broadband plan is unlikely to deliver superfast broadband through the BDUK plan. If your community wants the superfast broadband within a reasonable sort of timescale, within the next 2-3 years, then really you need to get involved. The most effective way at the moment to do that is through the Rural Community Broadband Fund, which is why we're here and sort of driving these timescales. That means that you need to get that project developed and submitted by the 6th of July. There are really two parts to that. There's the really proving that there is that demand, building that sort of that demand within the community. That really is where you need to focus and to lead. As Lauren said, there is a toolkit that can provide you the materials to help in doing that and the sort of guidance. There's also John, who's an expert in doing this, and that's why sort of he's involved. And so come talk to us if you want to do that. Then we can give you ideas, we can guide, we can actually sort of get involved. The second part of that is filling in the infamous sort of data book and application, and doing that part. And broadly, that's my job, to help you with that. I've got the experience of doing that and have that sort of technical background.
And that's definitely the worst job. Let him do it. It's really hard.
I'm pleased you said that.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm here to help. That's what this project is for. So get in touch with us, and we'll help you look at those. And what we can do is start to look at options about what are sensible, groups of communities that can join together to make those applications, how they're all going to work, and help you. We hope stand a good chance of putting it in a compelling bid to Adrian, not that I'm trying to manipulate his views in any way, but hey, he's here, so that's what we like to try and do. So,
I think we'll.
Anyone add to that?
7 weeks from here sounds a very, very aggressive timetable to me. Is this a one-off chance to get funding, or will there be a phase 3?
What we're doing is that we're going to. DEFRA's committed to keep running the rounds until the money's all gone.
Right.
Now, we're hearing quite a lot more interest this second time, so there is a risk that it will go. DEFRA have expressed an interest in potentially expanding the funds, but at the moment there's nothing being confirmed or set. So, as I say, at the moment that there's only the £20 million available. It may be expanded.
Could I just talk a little bit about technology?
Ooh.
Oh, go on.
Ask that question, or Ray.
Okay, so when you go back to your communities, people are going to say to you, what are our options? So if I could just summarise for you the 3 options that realistically you have to look at as a community. The first, and in our view the best, but could easily be beyond your reach, is getting an all-fibre solution into your community. Because basically it's going to see you through for the next 50 years or more.
At least.
Right. But for some of your communities that's just not going to be possible. You're either not going to have enough oomph to be able to set up your own company and run it and make it happen that Chris has managed to do, or you're not going to be able to actually get enough people, enough demand there to mean a company like us is going to come, bluntly. So that may not be an option for you. The second option you've got is putting in a wireless solution. Now, we had a little bit of a talk from a gentleman who's left actually now, but he was talking about an application he's put in. But there are commercial grade wireless solutions that you could put into your community that are much less expensive than a fibre-based solution, so are going to be easier for you to get your hands around as a community. Yeah, they have higher running costs generally, and they're overall less reliable and less future-proofed.
Don't worry about the wireless, because I'm going to get a couple of guys at the back to talk about wireless in just a second, since you've opened that up.
And the third option you've then got is doing something to make your current copper network work better, right? One version of that is finding enough financial support within your community to mean you can go to the county council or to BT, as James was talking earlier on, and saying, look, we've got 100 people in 100 properties here who will pay for essentially put 100 quid in each or 200 quid in each to actually get our cabinet upgraded, BT.
What if they haven't got a cabinet?
Well, there's stuff, don't they?
The stuff, yeah.
No, I mean, BT is developing a programme of how they can put a cabinet in where they don't currently have cabinets.
see,
So,
right.
at some point in the next few years, that might be an option for you. But, Blake, if you don't have a cabinet in your community...
It's not within the next... I certainly had BT offer within Northumberland to put what they call orphan cabinets in. Basically, they will go and put a fibre
Have they
in.
put one in yet?
No.
No, right. So in the next few years, I think that's likely to be a solution. But you do have 3 different sort of big picture technology choices that you can talk about in your community. And you need to understand that, because there'll be people in your community, if you don't talk about all 3, who'll go, why can't we? Yeah, so they are all options for you, and they all have pros and cons. And
Okay. Sorry, before we...
Doesn't change the copper to each dwelling.
No, but moving the equipment much closer to your property means that you'll get a better service off the existing copper.
Very quickly, John, Dave, do you want to say anything about commercial wireless solutions since you're here?
Firstly, Matthew summed it up really. Fibre to your home is without a doubt the best solution. But it's all about volume and cost. That's the bottom line. And the speed you want it delivered. Wireless, to pick up on the BD UK comment about 30 meg, 30 meg up and 30 meg down. A commercial wireless solution will easily go over that, no problem at all. We were testing at a local community yesterday. We were averaging 60 to 90 meg up and down on that local basis, no problem at all.
Sorry, over what sort of area? What distance?
About half kilometre.
We're actually doing 100 meg over wireless over 5.5 kilometres. So it will do it if you can get a feed.
Basic technology where when you want to go long distances, it's all about cost really. You easily get 300 meg, no problem at all with proper commercial systems. You can go even further than that if you want to. However, just to pick up on the side of it, wireless is really down to that where you really are struggling to get fibre to the home, or whether you want to do an infill project.
And if you've got line of sight.
Yeah.
You've got
There's definitely restrictions to it. But don't dismiss it. It's one of those projects that it could even just be used to get to a particular remote site. You've got fibre, Matthew delivered fibre right up to the door, and then your very last mile going right out to the rural. That's where wireless can actually work for you. So it's a combination of everything there.
One thing I would also add to that, we're an organisation that's looking at hybrid solutions, where you might use some fibre, some wireless, and some local copper. It's coming up with a solution overall, not just that's all we've got.
Excellent, yeah.
It's coming up with a solution because, as David said, you can get backhaul of a large capacity, but it's the local distribution where it might be 1-2 kilometres where you can get that power to that user. We're talking about parish councils. What does a parish council have at its core? Hopefully normally in a church. So you could link parish to parish and actually build your own wireless core network, which goes back to a certain point, from which that might have a high capacity backhaul. Like they've done over there, up in your community. You were fortunate to be near a dark fibre connection that can get you backhauled to the core.
Everybody's got dark fibre, it's just getting into it.
And also getting to it as well, which was very fortunate. But the key area is if you've got that range of solutions, it's going to give the more rural areas a better fighting chance. You may not have access to any funding. You might just say, forget this, we're going to do it ourselves because we want it now.
That's what we've done.
Yeah.
We've done what Adrian was on about before, a community share scheme, where if you buy some shares if we buy shares in our company, we get 30% tax back. But we have to keep them in the company for 3 years, so it equals like 10% a year, doesn't it, interest? whereas our ISIS are making nothing, so we might as well put it in our own company. It's a risk, but...
How many people do you actually have on your network or propose having on your network?
The network covers 1,500 people altogether. We...
People or properties?
Properties.
So that'd be about 4,000 people or so.
Well, whatever. There's around 1,500 properties. Of those, 900 now have expressed an interest in joining the network. Of those, 200 have actually bought £1,500 worth of shares, or a bit less or a bit more. And of those, we are confident half of them will take a service. So 700 to 750 houses will take a service.
You've got a very good quality success rate, hopefully.
Well, we have, because we're rural. That's why, and we're not...
communities which are bonding together.
Well, we're 8 parishes bonding together, but we're also not targeting any exchange areas. There's no exchanges. So because they think they've got broadband, and yet we're getting lots of requests from those places right next to exchanges now.
One little point I should raise is one thing that concerns a lot of people is their own telephone number. They've had it for
well, we're porting the telephone numbers.
We're exactly the same thing.
We're
that
porting them.
Material,
yeah.
Because if you do go for a voice over IP solution, you're not getting tied.
Well,
I'm going to run exchange. That's immaterial.
Yeah, we're porting. Yeah.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's not a barrier to entry.
We're actually providing 2 telephone lines in our equipment, so they can just plug their ordinary phones in and take a service for the calls from whoever they want. And there's a battery backup, so it can provide emergency calls.
It complies with the relevant current regulations.
It does. It does.
I think I'm right, Chris. As well as getting your 30% return on your shares, you also get a free service as well.
If you buy £1,500 worth of shares, you get a free connection and a free year's service. If you buy, the minimum you can buy is £100 worth of shares, but if you want tax relief, you've got to buy 500 because we can't cope with the admin for anything less than £100.
And all your documentation and your business plan is still on your website, isn't it?
It's all in the public domain on the website.
It's all on the Barn website.
But I'm not advising anybody to do it. I'm just saying this is the way we've done it. And there are lots of perks, like this EIS scheme, for going it alone and letting your council give all the money to BT so that the ones in the towns will get their super fast 30 meg. But there's ways, using wireless, or this, where you can get 1,000 meg for far less money.
If you want to find out more, the website is Barn, which is b4rn.org.uk. They're also going to be on the One Show on Thursday night.
Yes, on Thursday.
And on Radio 4 You and Yours on Friday lunchtime.
Chris said earlier at lunchtime that they never get any publicity.
No, I didn't mean that. I meant...
David.
We talk about fibre optics and you've got dark fibre. The reason the gentleman was talking about we're linking into fibre optic. One thing that people may or may not be aware of, that in North Wales used to be, there's a project called Fibre Speed, which is a big fibre network, but that network actually runs right through the heart of Cheshire. And that's the network we operate on, so hence why we're getting involved.
I think ours runs through Cheshire.
It will do.
No, it just goes to
The
Manchester
other
and
bit,
stops.
the other way.
Yeah, but does it just stop at Manchester? Does it not? Another one not go to London from Manchester?
No, I don't know the route of that one. But no, effectively,
There's plenty. It's everywhere. It's supposed to be like rats, is fibre. Never more than 6 metres away from a rat or fibre.
One of the things you'll have to make a judgment on what sort of community works out best for you, because you know the small cluster of houses doesn't work well. We'll be guided from you on what makes sense as a community, because we don't know the communities like you do. We don't know if there are any historical feuds or that sort of thing, you know. So
soon will when they get going.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Do get in touch if you want to go ahead.
yeah, we'll be around for a little while for a chat if you want to talk to us any more.